Well, we're happy to have on Mr. Geller. We
Harry.
appreciate we're happy to have on Harry. We appreciate you joining us. Let's just call it how it is. Give us a scale 1 through 10 of how shocked you were when Kevin Willard's departure kind of became semi-official and then official.
By the time it came official, I wasn't that shocked. I was when it originally leaked out that he had been looking at the Villanova job. I was a little taken back by it. I'm pretty close with Kevin. I've worked very closely with him, since he's been here, and wasn't totally surprised about it. He hasn't been overly happy here. I don't think his family has been that happy here. And so, it is what it is at this point.
How did it kind of all play out from your perspective? When did you kind of first start hearing the news that, Willard might be out the door?
Well, it's funny because we had my wife and I and my two sons and my son's fiance had a family trip planned for 2 years to be in New Zealand during this time. And it's the end of summer. So, you have to kind of go there while it's still warm. And so I left on March 14th, a very long flight, having an athletic director and a basketball coach. And I come back on March 31st and they're gone. So it was, kind of a shock. And I was in touch with Kevin the whole time about it. And I think, from his perspective, and I'm a Maryland guy, so I'll take I'll defend the school first and always. But, I think he hadn't been happy for a long time. There was a lot of things within the athletic department and the current athletic director that, he had reported were promised to him that didn't come through. And I think it had just been building up. And by the time it hit the critical point, it's, sometimes things are broken to the point where they can't be fixed. And I think that's what happened here.
With Damon's departure, obviously you've worked with him in the athletic department, leading Turtle NIL. Did you have any inkling that he would depart to SMU as well?
No, I was very surprised about that.
What do you think was the biggest reason for his exit?
Damon's? He probably, financially got a bump up. He got an opportunity to go to a school. Football's his first love, and there's no secret about that. And, I can respect that. And I think they care way more about football at SMU. They have access to a lot of money, a lot of donor money. So I think, when Damon looked at it, it's like, okay, bump up in salary, a school that really can compete for the national championship, pretty cool city, Dallas. I mean, why not? That's how I would be looking at it.
Fair point. I definitely think as a former football guy too, it seems that probably lined up more with his expectations of how programs should be run. And I wanted to ask you kind of about that. Willard made some claims that he thought Maryland's NIL when it started was at the bottom barrel of the country at the beginning. And then you kind of have said that wasn't necessarily the case. They've been in the bottom part of the top half of the Big Ten. Can you just kind of talk about where Maryland's NIL stood and the conversations you and Willard had about raising the money and where it was going?
Yeah, I think, Kevin's, comments, I don't think they were directed at me or, Harvey Sanders or, the guys that run the NIL. I think it was more the support from the administration where a lot of schools were, even though they couldn't give money, they were giving a lot of support. They were hiring general managers, they were hiring, analytics companies, things like that to really help support NIL. They were holding fundraisers, golf tournaments, things like that, where from, the Maryland perspective, it was kind of just left up to myself and the guys and Alex O'Neill and the guys that run Turtle NIL. And so I think that's where his frustration was, is like, hey, you got these, 2 or 3 unpaid retired guys running the whole program here, and that's the whole support I get. And he was, thankful for us for that, but I think it really frustrated him that there was an administrative help. Now, last year, Brian Ullman, who's executive vice president of marketing and strategic at Maryland, he got involved in the NIL and he had some pretty progressive thoughts about it and helped a lot. But I think at that point, just my opinion, it was too little, too late for Kevin.
Yeah, I want to back up a little bit here. How did you specifically get involved in Turtle NIL? And did someone approach you to start the NIL collective? How did you get involved?
Yeah, it's a longer story, but when Mark Turgeon was there, I was out to dinner with him and his son and a few other friends. And this was July, I think, of 21. And the NIL was just announced. And, Mark was saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know, how do you make sense of this? And, I said, well, let's look at it from a business perspective. Why don't we form a direct marketing collective and go, try to raise a little bit of money, go to some local businesses and say, hey, from a shared perspective, let's have, Eric Ayala and Fats Russell and, some of the players at that time, come do meet and greets and sign hats and stuff like that. I mean, it was a very simple and kind of raw thing in the beginning. And Mark called me the next day and said, okay, I want you to do this. Can you help me, please? I don't know what I'm doing. So I was like, yeah, sure. I kind of, at the time I was retired and was, happy to lend some help there, and it kind of snowballed from there.
How do you think that when the game started, and you've been a booster now for so long, how did it shift almost in booster mentalities and giving money comparative to the NIL era to pre-NIL? Because there's so many avenues now to give money. I remember talking with Kirby Mills and other people and saying, boosters are confused. Do we give money to the university? Do we give to the collective? How has the mentality and donations shifted between the eras?
Well, I mean, you're right. I don't even know if it shifted. I mean, you certainly have in the beginning some people, and I didn't have this attitude. I always felt players should be paid. How they were paid, is up for debate. But some boosters didn't want anything to do with paying players, so they would just direct the money at the Terrapin Club, which would go towards scholarships, which is a very noble cause as well. But, there was enough boosters that really want a good basketball program that, once we showed them, okay, that this is how it's going to develop into keeping a Julian Reese here or helping get Derek Queen here, the people were willing to pay. But, it's true. There's a million different ways to give money at Maryland. They're all, worthy causes. But, it's sort of a conundrum because you got, I think, Kirby Mills is great, but you got us fighting against him, for the same, dollar. Someone's only going to give a certain amount of dollars, and how they allocate it is how they want to allocate it. So it's a good, valid point and valid question.
What do you think that the makeup or the allocation of donations and NIL driven money is between football and basketball here? If you had to kind of percentage it.
Percentage it up because it's all changing in about 2 months.
Yeah, fair enough.
Up to this point or after this point?
Up to this point, I would say. And then after at that point for you.
Coach Loxley, he's got his guys, and Maryland basketball has their guys, and people like me, I give to both. A lot of guys give to both, but I'm probably personally I lean more on the basketball side, and I think most of the big donors lean more towards the basketball side.
Do you think that'll change moving forward?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The way higher allocation is going to go towards football. All of the Big Ten. They kind of all benchmark all 18 schools what each other's doing, and they're all roughly in the same amount of percentage allocation of football to basketball.
Are you personally planning to stay involved with the collective, or does it depend on who Maryland hires?
It'll depend. I mean, if it's one of the guys I know, I know a lot of the coaching candidates, and I do not know who they're going to hire. And although I'll just break off for a second, I think they're doing the people involved are doing a good job trying to get the candidates in. If the coach wants me to stay involved a little bit, I'm happy to do it. I think at some point, they hired G. Roy Simon to be the general manager. He's a good guy. He'll do a great job. And they probably should hire a basketball general manager, and it shouldn't be someone who's retired and likes to play golf a lot and, works when he feels like working. It should be a full-time guy. But I'll stay involved as long as the new coach wants me to.
Do you have any preference for who they would hire?
My more preference, and you're really, you could kind of look at it two ways. One is, because we sort of have the opportunity with the portal now to spend the rest of our NIL money before the salary cap hits next year. We need to get someone quickly. So, one school of thought is a lot of good candidates out there, local guys and national guys. Let's get someone in here quickly. Let's strike in the portal. Let's deploy the money we have. And, the other school of thought is let's wait till we hire an AD and let him or her, pick the next candidate. Now, I'm more for the former, but other people might be for the latter.
When would you expect a new AD to be hired?
I know they're putting together a search committee, but I really don't know. I'm not too involved in that. And, I'm confident they'll do a good job.
Right.
There's I know some of the people on their search committee, and they're really, really smart people. So I'm pretty confident on that.
Right. And with no AD right now, who would you think is kind of leading this head coaching search for Maryland?
I think it's, with Daryl Pines, Brian Ullman, and Colleen Sorum, I think, they're all pretty competent. They, I think, suspected Kevin was leaving and started, proactively, looking. And I think they've, I talk to them fairly frequently, and I think they've done a great job.
What do you think that they're like? I know you say you don't know who it'll be, and I think nobody at this point knows, but what do you think is kind of the qualities that Maryland's looking for in the next coach? Are they are you trying to get a local guy to kind of stand, Leno Moore and former alums have put out kind of the call for that? Are you going for a more forward-thinking hire? As is someone who has a ton of head coaching experience? Like, what qualities have you heard is kind of the main aspects Maryland's looking for?
I think, someone with experience, someone with local ties. I mean, this is a extremely fertile area for recruiting, and, having someone who knows it is, gives you a leg up. I think someone who wants to be here, I would, welcome someone who's been here before, or, a former player. Those would all be the kind of people that I would be supportive of. And, I think those are the main qualities. Also, who's available.
So I think that's kind of, when you see the names being floated around, those are the main. Tony Skinn, Dwayne Simpkins, those are guys that either played here, coached here, have some ties to the area. So that seems to be kind of one of the main themes. Wrapping up before we get out of here, I wanted to ask you, there's been a lot of outrage over Willard's departure, and I think rightfully so from some Terps fans, just about kind of the press conferences and the saga that went down. But I guess since you've spoken with Coach Willard, I wanted to give you a chance to kind of give your opinion on everything, all the comments that have been made, everything that he said over this 2-week saga per se, about everything that happened, and just kind of give maybe your thoughts about some of the press conferences and interviews and such.
Yeah, Kevin's my friend, and and I've said this to him and would say to him again, I don't really condone how he went about it. And I will say, there's probably more to the story than the people that are inflamed really know. And sometimes events, get out of hand and take control of the situation. I think that's pretty much what happened. But, I'm not happy how it went about. And, sort of left in the lurch right now. And, I'm close to some of the players, and, they were upset. A bunch of them jumped into the transfer portal, which, this day and age, they kind of have to do what's right for them. And so, I think it could have been handled better, but I'm not, pissed at him or anything. It's just, sometimes events get out of control.
Yeah, I mean, another donor, Barry P. Gossett, in a CBS article said that the donors were, quote, played like a drum. Did you kind of feel that same sentiment?
Barry is welcomed his opinion. I think there's more to it than that. So I'll just say, probably looking back, could have been handled better. We all wish we had the, reverse button on our personal remote, but we don't. And you guys will see that as you progress in life and business. Sometimes you do things you're not, you think could have gone better. And I think this would be one of those situations.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. I also think the timing of Maryland obviously playing in the Sweet 16 when it was all going down didn't make it much better. You mentioned kind of you have relationships with the players. Going forward in the transfer portal, what are the next steps right now, at least from your perspective, how to maybe get some of the guys that were on the roster last year to come back? And also with so many players jumping in, what's the plan, you think, to field a roster?
Yeah, I mean, well, the whole situation is crazy. I mean, Indiana has 0 players on their roster right now. I guess Maryland has 1 or 0 now also. I would just say I've talked, I'm close to some of the parents, and and I won't name names, but it shouldn't be too hard to figure out if some of the right local people are hired here, we would have, a shot at some of the players coming back. And, particularly if we're in a competitive situation with the money. I mean, it's all money driven now. And this is really just the first wave of transfer portal. The same thing happened last year where we had the first few days we had a huge burst of players, and then it kind of leveled off for a while, and then we had another burst of players. So there's going to be a second wave of players, and whoever our coach is going to be able to tap into that. I feel pretty confident that, if we get the right guy, we might be able to get 1 or 2 of our guys back. I think there's only 3 or 4 out anyway. So it's not like we have, 10 guys to try to come back. But pretty much every team is doing the same thing. I mean, look at, Mark Pope at Kentucky made Sweet 16. He started late April and had no one. And, that's Kentucky, but it can be done. And with the right guy, we'll do it.
Well, we appreciate you hopping on, giving us some insight. Thank you so much, Harry, and
good luck. My tech son isn't here right now.
That's okay. It gives kind of the booster in the dark type of
the shadowy shadow. I've always been the wizard behind the curtain for a while anyway. So, but hey, meet you guys, and have any questions, just text me.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Harry.